It's Golden Hour Adventure Time, featuring everyday people doing extraordinary things. From the peaks of victory to the valleys of defeat, these are their stories. Now, from the back of the pack, your hosts, Justin and Robbie. Welcome to Golden Hour Adventures. Today we have a really cool guest. It's going to be a little bit different. We're going to jump into his story a little bit, but we're going to talk about like what he does as a job. And I think this is going to be a very interesting conversation, and it's going to bring insight to any runner out there that's run a big event. Really cool. Derek Sprau, welcome. Derek Sprau, welcome to the... I was so nervous about saying your last name that I screwed up my something else. I can't even say welcome.
You went down south.
Hey, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys. Happy to be here.
Yeah, what you were giving us a little bit of an introduction before we hit record, but tell us a little bit about what you do and like some of the events that you've been a part of.
Yeah, I myself have been, a runner on and off for years, and it's something that's come and go, but always kind of been there. But even when I myself haven't been actively, training or running, I've always been, involved in the running community, and I've been on the production side for years and years and years. Going all the way back to like 2005, 2006.
So on the production side, what does that mean? Like when you're saying production, is that just the race in general?
Start to finish, everything from taking registrations, building registration platforms, and managing packet pickups and expos and race day things. I've kind of throughout the years had my hand in a little bit of everything. At one point for a while, in and around the Chicagoland area, ran a small race company with my now ex-wife, and we produced a handful of events a year, and then for about from 2007 until 2023. I was very heavily involved with the Chicago Marathon, and for the majority of those years, I was in charge of the crew that built pretty much the whole finish line area there.
Wow.
We built the big structure that everybody runs under. I stopped doing that in 2023 only because all the major marathons now are going to LED screens with all their finishes on their structures. I don't have to tell you that those LED screens are not cheap. So the companies that own those LED screens, they want their guys building the truss and mounting their screens up there. So it's gone kind of from something that used to be subcontracted by the company that produces the marathon, now to those guys specifically use their own contractors for that.
How many people does it take to organize the Chicago Marathon?
Something like the majors marathons. I mean, I would say that the majority of people running those races have no idea what goes into producing them.
Yeah, and I've never ran them, and I have no idea. But I mean, I've seen them on TV, something
like the Chicago Marathon. You're probably talking somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,000 to 3,000 subcontractors that are on site for that build. You're building out 26.2 miles of Chicago.
Yeah.
You got 26.2 miles where you're laying fencing and you're laying signage and dropping porta potties, and you got to organize logistics for aid stations, getting trucks out there, and getting, all the cups and tables and water to the right place at the right time, and making sure all the volunteers are out there and have what they need to be out there for a 8-hour day, handing out water to people. The logistics of those races are insane.
So 2,000 to 3,000 subcontractors. How many volunteers?
Volunteers is probably 10, 15,000, 20,000 volunteers are on site. I mean, those aid states, you have around 45,000 runners on race day. So, it's not like you can get away with, 5 or 6 people at an aid station handing out cups of water.
Yeah, you have to have
Those,
a lot.
those aid stations have, 30, 40 people at each aid station. They've got one person that's designated a aid station captain who's kind of in charge of all those volunteers, making sure that they get checked in, making sure that they get their free t-shirt and they get their free lunch and they're getting their vouchers for their free dinner afterwards and that they're in the right place and they're doing what needs to be done. And that volunteer coordinator is answering to somebody else who works for the main production company who oversees all the volunteer coordinators. So yeah, like something like the Chicago Marathon is produced by a company called CEM, Chicago Event Management. They've been producing the Chicago Marathon pretty close to since its inception. Um, Marathon just had its 50th year for Chicago. The guy that's the race director there, Kerry Pinkowski, he's a fantastic guy. He's a runner at heart, born and raised in Indiana. He himself was a pretty accomplished runner, both in high school, college, and professionally for a little while. He really brings that community together. What is now known as that six-star organization, which is all the major marathons. He's the one who kind of put that organization together and really brought all those major races together and said, hey, let's kind of, really become kind of a thing that is for one organization and trying to make all of that together. Obviously,
Wow.
they all kind of still do their own individual thing, but
Yeah.
yeah.
It's funny that well, it's not funny, but to me it is that you talk about it as it is a production. But when you break it all down like that, it is a production. Like, I mean, Robbie and I think, I'm speaking for Robbie, but like we think of like a race director, right? And there's like, and I get there is a race director, but there's a production company that has to organize all of these subcontractors and has to lay out every single piece of this. And for the races that we are used to, there's 300 people. And if there's 300 people in a race, that's a lot of people, and it's like,
Yeah, but I
but
can tell you, even those have their own sets of challenges.
yeah, and I don't doubt that either. I 100% don't doubt that. I just like, I can't, I've never been to, a big major event. I was about to say I've never been to Chicago, but I have. I've never been to a major event like that. The biggest race I've ever run was like a marathon with like 1,000 people, and I thought that was like
Mhm.
massive, And so I can't even fathom 45,000 people with like tens of thousands of people volunteering and tens of thousands of people spectating, and just like I just can't. I can't picture it. I can't
Yeah, well,
see
it's
it.
it's it's typically somewhere between 1.2 and 1.5 million people that come out to spectate that race, and the size of Chicago is no stranger to anybody, and to give you a little bit of a better picture, the Chicago Marathon weekend, that is the single highest revenue weekend for the entire city as
I
far as
I don't doubt it.
hotels, restaurants, everything's are concerned. That brings in more money than Lollapalooza, Taste of Chicago. It brings in more money than any other massive event going on in Chicago. They raise millions and millions of charity dollars every year. Um, so
Yeah, that's
they
one
it,
thing that
it,
I
it's
like
definitely a
how.
production.
Yeah, I like how Chicago and New York are the same. How, they treat every runner the same, and
Hmm.
the finish line is open until the last runner comes through. And like I
Yeah,
know we've talked about this back and forth a little bit on Instagram, but there's other races that don't support that, and so
yeah.
y- you know. I'd like to hear your thoughts because everybody's already heard mine. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on like the charity runners and the people that are, giving back to all these organizations and the hundreds of millions of dollars that these races raise every year. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. I
Yeah,
already
it's
know your thoughts, but I
humongous.
want to hear 'em.
Yeah, I mean it's the charity dollars that all of these major you know races bring in
Yeah.
is gigantic, and the charity runners are a huge portion of the field, and I think most of the races, if you were to talk to the race directors themselves and the people who are there putting on the race, they're in huge support of that.
Yeah.
Like, my crew of guys, a lot of the guys that are building these races that are out there, we're doing things like putting together massive truss structures that cover Columbus Avenue in downtown Chicago. These guys aren't all runners. A lot of
Yeah.
them are just working guys. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But those guys we're out there leaving that finish line open until the last minute, and we take pride in watching those people come in. We know how hard that they've worked to be there to cross that finish line and everything. And there's times where you see those guys sitting there, they're getting emotional just watching it. A lot of times it can be, more emotional watching that dead last finisher than the guy who actually is winning the race, the first one across the finish line, because that person, in a lot of cases, has been out there way longer and worked really hard for that.
Yeah.
So I think it's tough. As far as the incident I know what you're referring to with Boston and everything, and I think my tough thing with that was the fact that the people were handed the medals and under the impression that they had done what they had done, and then it wasn't good on paper. I can see why that would be really, really hard to swallow.
Yeah, but and it's like but they did finish the race. And so
Yeah.
like why do they not deserve the medal as well, and that's kind of where I'm at. Like, they finished the race. Why take the medal away? That makes no sense to me.
I don't know. I mean, it seems like, well, I mean, I will say this, I know that, look, with a big race, just as with an ultra, right? If I know this is the cutoff time, right? Okay. And it's written in sand. I know that before I start that race, right? And you tell me, hey, look, I've got to take my DNF.
Yeah.
That's life. I get that. We all get that.
100%.
We've all been there, right?
But when the cutoff
when there's that,
floats,
so that's the thing that is, doesn't make you feel right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That should be clear cut. You should know, as a runner, you've put in that 12 to 20 weeks training. You read up on it. Of course, we all know that person who shows up on the starting line of a marathon and didn't do any of their training. But, for most of those people, they put the work in, and they've done their research, and they know what they got to do, and they've set their target paces in their mind. And to go out and do that and feel like you did all that and be looking at your watch the whole time saying, oh, I'm on pace, I'm going to do it, I'm good, and I may be cutting it close, but I got this, and I've put in this work, and I'm doing it. And then to find out, oh, well, we changed kind of what we told you at the beginning, and now you're finishing, knowing that wasn't really the case. That kind of lack of communication, I don't really have a lot of understanding for. I mean, especially in today's day and age where communicating is fairly simple and there's a lot of ways to do it. So.
Yeah, and we don't have to go down the Boston talks, because everybody's heard mine and Robbie's thoughts on Boston. So I just wanted to hear your take on it with you actually sitting at the finish line and seeing all of the finishers come through and completing the race. Like, there's a hard set time that they have to finish by. Everybody knows what that hard set time is at both Chicago and New York. And so, I just don't understand why other races that are within somewhat of the same organization can't figure that out.
Yeah. And I mean, I'd agree with you. And, from the perspective of being somebody who's been on the other side of that fence on the production end, I mean, I get it's tough. I mean, there's, people say being in event production is like riding a bike while it's on fire and somebody's throwing stuff at you. I mean, it's hard. And I mean, if you're somebody who this is your life, I mean, a lot of these people, you spend an ungodly amount of time, sometimes reading people putting things online, tearing apart, what you're doing and telling you, oh, this was wrong or that was wrong. And, it's tough and it's stressful. I mean, I know a lot of people that have worked in this industry and are just have been completely burned out by it. It's not easy, and the people that go into it aren't going into it to be rich. I mean, I'll
No.
tell you, even the big races, the guys that are like, the RD of the Chicago Marathon, or the New York Marathon, I know those guys. They're not, driving Bentleys to work and, taking vacations in the Bahamas. They do it because they love running and they love supporting the industry. So I think it's hard, and I don't,
Unless you're Candace.
I don't think,
Sorry, I had to get that little jab in
you
there.
know, no, nobody's going into that. A lot of people that start, like for me, when I ran our small little race company with my ex-wife, a lot of people are doing that because you love running and you love the community and you've seen all these other races and you're like, I want to do my own thing because I've got, some neat ideas. And, like the old saying goes, like, put on a race that you want to run, right?
Yeah.
you know. So, you're out there trying to give a little piece of yourself and share that. So I think, most of the community, the people, they're doing that out of a true love of the game. Um, and so there are things that come up when you're doing that are hard to deal with, and you can't make everybody happy. But, again, in that instance, I feel like there a little bit more effort could have been put into smoothing that over, probably,
Yeah, 100%.
or whatever.
So you
You
don't
know,
do this anymore. You don't work in the
I
production
you
area.
know I still occasionally I do like some consulting work with people who I know who are, you know, like I said, there's no shortage of people out there who want to try to put their own 5K on or something like that. Um, and I have a couple small races around Chicago. Like there's a turkey trot here that is just kind of a cool, small little 5K race every year on Thanksgiving. It's in the neighborhood where all the Chicago firefighters and policemen live, and the money goes to benefit their organizations. And I've been working that race for like 15 years, and I just work it every year because it's fun and it makes my day on Thanksgiving morning.
Yeah, that's
But it's
cool.
not what I'm doing for a living anymore. No.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not doing it full time. And quite honestly, um, it there was obviously a number of years there during the you know COVID years where being in the event business was the death sentence.
Yeah, it
So
was
I
tough.
mean,
Yeah.
a lot of people I know that were in that industry for 10, 15 years over the course of those 5 years ended up leaving it to go do something else because they just couldn't wait it out.
Yeah, that was
So the
really
ones that
hard.
pushed through that, they were tough.
I know. Yeah, there were
And
some big companies that
there were a
fell
lot of good
apart.
events that, yeah, I was going to say, there's a lot of good events that died during that time and just couldn't manage a comeback.
Yeah.
It was rough. So, my wife worked for years in the event industry, but on the music side, and they had a lot of the same thing in that industry. It was a hard time to be in the business of getting people to go out.
For sure. Yeah, I know.
Can
Like
you
trail racing over Texas, like they lost. He pretty much got rid of all of his races and just kept a little small bit of stuff. But
Hmm.
yeah, crazy.
It's tough, and like I said, those guys. If you're one of the smaller companies, you're not, you don't have somebody like Bank of America behind you, or TCS New York behind you. You're floating the boat. So when you got to start your race, you're paying for the medals and the T-shirts and everything up front out of pocket, and hoping that you've come close to the number of people you think you're going to register. And if it ain't right, you're eating what's left over. You know what I mean?
Yep, 100%.
So it's tough.
can you take us through the logistics of setting up and taking down the race? Let's just use Chicago since it's a big race. Like trying to wrap my
Yeah, I
head
mean
around
the logistics
45,000
are the
45,000
logistics
people.
are insane. They're insane. You basically have I don't know what your familiarity is with Chicago, but right in the center of downtown there on the lakefront, you have Buckingham Fountain. And across Michigan Avenue from Buckingham Fountain there, you have the Hilton Chicago, which is the like main hotel for the Chicago Marathon. And then a little south of there, you got McCormick Place, which is where the expo takes place. In next to Buckingham Fountain, there's like a rose garden right there. In that rose garden, there's basically a small city that gets erected right there and is on site there for probably about a month. Um, and guys sleeping in trailers and all kinds of stuff. You have, you know, a guy on site who's there working with the crew 24 hours a day, whose whole job it is just to be uh, bringing in equipment. You've got, probably 50, 60 different forklifts on site. You've got 200 golf carts on site. You've got, um, you know, 300 rental generators on site. You've got several hundred rental ice machines on site. You got semi trucks coming and going, dropping off pallets of water. I mean, it's weeks. It's a week long process where you have vendors and contractors coming and going to do everything from tapping into city power and wiring sound up and down Columbus Avenue. Columbus Avenue, you've got, like 8 or 9 blocks there between Roosevelt and Randolph that is kind of the heart of the whole race. That's where the start finish is. It's where the post race party is. It's where gear check is, volunteer check in. You got they build a massive tent in that rose garden that will seat probably 500, 600 people at a time. They're serving 3 meals a day in there to feed all the contractors who are on site. Um, Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. We start the finish, like, I mean, I could tell you more specifically, like finish and start line, races on Sunday. We're starting our build out on Thursday afternoon. They're closing down Columbus Avenue to traffic. Um, we're spending, a good 2 days out there just straight building our truss structure in the street, which is covering 4 lanes, that goes overhead. We're spending a couple days building that, strapping it down, waiting for city inspectors to come in to make sure that we've got all our ballasts on and everything tied down correctly so it's going to survive, potential storms or anything else. Then once that's all been approved, we can come back in and brand that whole structure, meaning put on, what started 15 years ago as kind of like a snow fence material, progressed into like branded coroplast and aluminum backed coroplast, and now they're on to the, just covering the whole thing in digital LED screens. You've got build outs for, news cameras. They build a giant permanent structure on Columbus Avenue there that's all wood, real wooden windows and everything that NBC's whole crew sits in at the finish line for 2.5 days. Um, I mean, it's the amount of things that are going on over the course of a week and a half right there downtown to make that race happen are insane. I mean, you've got all that stuff happening right in Grant Park, and while all that stuff's going on in Grant Park, you have almost an equal sized operation going on being coordinated at the exact same time down at McCormick Place to build out a fitness expo with, 100+ vendors for, 45,000 runners plus their friends and family. I mean, that thing's open to public. That thing can see 1 million people over the course of 2 days. It's
These
crazy.
numbers I can't wrap my head around these numbers.
I mean, like the Nike booth at the Chicago Marathon Expo is probably doing, $25,000-$30,000 in sales every hour, during that thing. So, but I mean, again, those people are training hard. You got people coming in the Chicago Marathon from, like over 40 countries, and some of those people have scrimped and saved the whole year to be able to afford this trip to Chicago to run this big race. They're going to drop everything they got and get as much stuff as they can to remember that experience, So,
Yeah, 100%.
but yeah, I mean, the pure logistics of what's going on are for any one of those big races is crazy. And you've got, the guys like us that are out there, building the structures and the things and setting up all the audio and all that kind of stuff. Those guys, one of the reasons that I'm gonna feel like I'm gonna be pretty well fit into ultra running is I'm no stranger to being awake for 3-4 days straight working. Because when you work these events, that's what you're doing. I mean, you're up 3 days straight. Doing what you got to do. Catching a 20-minute cat nap inside of a pod storage unit on the side of Columbus Avenue, or catching a cat nap in a golf cart on the side of the road. I mean, that's that industry. Yeah, I think a lot of people show up race morning. They definitely don't know what's going into the back end of that.
On the road closure, so you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
the finish line. It sounds like the road's closed at that area for quite a bit. How much of the course is closed during the setup and the teardown? Besides the
Not
race?
much. So yeah, not much. I mean, it's they'll get that kind of area around Grant Park. They get that big chunk of Columbus, like I said, where they really concentrate most of the stuff. That's where all the big, huge VIP tents and everything are going, and all the main check-ins and check-outs and everything. Um, as far as the rest of the course, they're doing build-out stuff leading up to that. So they'll do things like stage locked pods along the course and locked semi-truck trailers with water and things like that. In the week leading up, they're staging forklifts out there because the person managing that aid station, there also has to be a certified forklift driver there because there's so much water coming off of a semi-truck. You need a boom fork to unload all of that. Um, and so those guys are getting those areas set up in the days leading up. But as far as the rest of the course outside of that main area, that's only getting closed down, very early the night before, like 3 a.m. ish, and then getting, reopened as it's actively getting reopened. So, there's a chase vehicle coming through, and that chase vehicle is being followed by, 7 or 8 city street sweeper trucks being followed by 7 or 8 city garbage trucks. So those crews are, it's crazy. You'll see a street that is a 4-lane wide, covered in cups for 200 yards around the aid station. You can't even see pavement. These guys come through in a matter of minutes. They've got everything swept up, cleaned up into the back of a truck. There's another crew behind them with a barricade truck, pulling barricade, pulling cones, and opening the road up behind them as they go.
Wow.
It's a well-oiled machine.
They just got it down to a science.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of have to. So, and I'm sure we've all been a part of those races that might be in their first or second year where something goofy happens or there's some hiccup. But that's the other thing I'll say is that these from the perspective of a participant, because I've also been a participant. Have a little grace with them. They're out there trying to put their little spin on their love for this,
Yeah, for sure.
for running and for this, and it's hard. Things go wrong, so
It's when they're in their 10th or 12th year and it still sucks.
Yeah, that's a different story. You got to, like my grandpa always said, there's nothing wrong with making a mistake, but you better learn from it. It's when you make it 2 or 3 times that we got a problem.
I was asking the road closure question because of the whole thing with Boston and the whole time thing. It sounds like Chicago's got it well oiled down. I know nothing about Boston, so who knows about how they do all that there with the logistics. It just it's odd to me that this city is willing to bring all these people in and make all this money, but when it comes down to the race, I'm just talking in general, not when it comes down to the race, that they might start shafting runners due to time.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're saying, some of these people have spent, or saved up their whole, who knows how many years worth of money to get into one of these majors. They show up there, then not all of them, just stuff happens. I was living in Utah when the Winter Olympics came through, And like the preparation for the Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City, Utah was years. And when it happened, the state did not care about closing the roads down and telling the people to fuck off.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, this is a once in a lifetime thing. We're making all this money. Deal with it. And I'm just trying to wrap my head around, like, as a business person, as a city, like, I'm willing to take your money, but I'm sometimes not willing to give you what you expect. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, no, it does. So again, I mean, a lot there, you're coming down to a battle between the city and the race itself. And I will tell you this, if when you sign, the permitting thing is tough. I mean, you want to talk about politics, the politics that the race directors have to play with the city to make sure that they can get the road closures that they want and the dates that they want and the times that they want. I mean, you gotta play the game to be on the good side. I mean, when permitting opens up in Chicago in January for the year, the permitting office downtown outside of the city that the night before, these event companies, they hire people. There will be people camped out down the street and around the block in sleeping bags waiting for the permit office to open so that they can get the dates that they want for their event, because it's so competitive to get those dates and times and everything in the city. And when you get that permit, the city says, okay, Chicago Marathon, we're going to give you, we give you Columbus Avenue from X time to X time. And sometimes the city will change that up on you on a dime. We've had years in the Chicago Marathon where we thought we were going to get the street closed at, 11 a.m. on Thursday to start our build out for the finish line. And this was in 2021 or 2022. Taylor Swift was having a concert at Soldier Field, which is only 3 blocks away from the area of Columbus, where the finish and everything is. And they said, look, we got to keep the road open for traffic. So now we can't give you guys your closure until 5 p.m. So we lost 5-6 hours of build time. We got to figure that out. You know what I mean? You're battling with the city, and then on the opening end, the city's going to say, look, your permit here, we're going to let you close these 26 miles of city roads starting at 3 a.m. on Sunday morning. You got to promise us that you're going to have this road back open by X time. And, they're doing that rolling start because the city's giving them that rolling open. They're saying, okay, so for this first, 5 miles of the course, you got to have that open by X time. The next 5 miles, you got to have that open by X time. You got to have the next 5 miles open by X time. And if they're late on that, they're getting fined. And it's not a small fine. So, a lot of that is playing a game that the race director or the race organization doesn't necessarily have the leeway in, because, look, we all know how hard it is to battle with the government. Go in and tell them that they have to do what you want. That doesn't happen.
Well, you would think with the amount of money that Chicago brings in, the Chicago Marathon brings in for Chicago, that the government would want to work with the companies that put it on.
Because, well, so I mean, you gotta look at it, I guess, from a little bit broader of a picture. Whereas, so all the aldermen and all those people in the city of Chicago that are saying, okay, great, we're going to support the Chicago Marathon, here's your thing, they're all for it. But if the marathon messes up and now they say, look, we don't really care. You keep the street open as long as you want. Now the marathon says, okay, well, now the finish cap is 8 hours, right? Well, now you've got, 2-3 million residents that are complaining that the streets close 2 hours longer. At the end of the day, those 2-3 million residents saying to their aldermen, we're going to kick your ass out of office, pushes more weight than the marathon saying, we make you a handful of millions of dollars. Because at the end of the day, that may be good, but that's not what's keeping you where you want to be. So, I mean, there's when you get into the events that are that big, there's like a whole range of politics that are going on. That
I also would imagine that if you're one of those residents of Chicago that is not a runner and cares nothing about the race, that it's kind of a
Oh my God.
burden.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's tons of people that come by us while I can't tell you the number of times we've been closing roads or doing something for a race where, people are, yelling things at you. And look, a lot of times we're out there, closing a road down at 3 o'clock in the morning in a major city on a Saturday night. So guess who we're dealing with? It's like we're not dealing with the cream of the crop. Like we're dealing with people who are driving by throwing beer bottles out of cars at us, saying, "What are you fucking jerks doing?" I mean, I've worked races where I worked a triathlon one year where we had to delay the start of the race because 2 blocks into the race, a drunk guy had pulled his car into the middle of an intersection and just blacked out in the car, and the doors were locked in the car, and we had to get CPD to come, and they had to jimmy the lock open, then we had to wake this guy up, get him out of his car, tow the car out of the road. I
Oh
mean,
my gosh.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, with a big city like that, there's just I just can't
Oh,
imagine.
it's crazy stuff. I mean, in 26 miles of the Chicago Marathon, you go in every neighborhood. So I mean, some of those you're like I said, you're out there at 3 o'clock in the morning, forklifting water off of a truck, and you're getting yourself into a conversation with some interesting people.
So I've
Yeah.
never ran a road marathon, and like just talking about it and all this and all, like there's no draw for me at all. Like
No?
no, because like I can just go get on the trail, and the trail is there's no cars, there's maybe some mountain bikers, maybe some hikers, and I can just
Yeah.
go. The logistics, of setting up trail races can be crazy.
Oh yeah.
But I guess for me, it's like I have a hard time understanding what the draw is to going to a city, running 26 miles on the road. I'm not a road runner, never been a road runner,
Yeah.
so there's a little difference there. My running is done on the trails where I want to go see mountains and rivers and lakes and waterfalls and all that other stuff. So my draw is totally different.
Mm-hmm.
But just hearing the amount of people that do this compared to the amount of people that will go run, just say, a 50 miler or a hard 50 miler in Colorado, like Justin was saying, there may be 100 people show up there where there is 45,000, 50,000 people going to run 26 miles through a city on a closed road.
Mm-hmm.
My question is like, where do you see the draw with these people, since you've been doing it for so many years? Like you've had to see or talk to people why they come and do this and want to
Well,
do
I mean,
all the majors.
I myself have run the Chicago Marathon. And I mean, when I first got into running, I got into the road end first, and I was doing that for a while. I am a outdoor person by nature. I mean, I am an outdoor dog. When I'm in the house, I will go stand outside just to be outside. So I'm 100% with you on that front. I mean, my happy place is in the woods with nobody else around me. I'm a friendly person, but when I run into a bunch of other people on the trail, I'm like, damn it, why is it so crowded out here
Yeah.
today? You know what I
How'd you
mean?
find out about this?
Yeah, exactly. Like, who told you about this? I know this state park is supposed to be my private land. So I mean, I'm 100% with you there. But on the flip side of that, I will say, look, I personally, there's no draw for me and don't understand the appeal to road racing when it comes to like just running 5Ks and half marathons on the pavement weekend after weekend all summer long. I personally don't get it. A lot of people love it. Fully for them, because the more people that are out there running, whether they're running on road or trail, I'm happy. But I will say that, like, having run a major marathon, running Chicago, uh, there's not much like that. It's a pretty electric atmosphere. I mean, you want to talk about feeling what it's like to be an elite. I mean, everybody at the Chicago Marathon feels like an elite because there's 1.5 million people standing on the street cheering you along every step of the way, telling you you're Superman. Um, and you know, it's also it's definitely probably the coolest, most unique way to tour a major city. I'll definitely say that. I mean, you know, there's parts of Chicago that I will drive through to this day, you know, and be like, man, I remember, you know, dying right there. I remember right there, some little kid gave me a Twizzlers and that made my day. You know what I mean? Like it, so, it's speaking exclusively to the majors. I can understand that only because it is such this electric atmosphere that it's pretty hard not to get sucked into, even if road racing isn't your thing. It just kind of is its own animal, you know. So I think there's a lot of that. For as far as the general public, I think a lot of it's just boils down to accessibility. I mean, for years I didn't run on trails because I lived in the city. There's no trails. You know what I mean? So I think for you know you've got the bulk of the people in this country living in the populated cities. They're not living in rural areas. You know what I mean? And those people are going for what's accessible. So for the vast majority of the people in this country, when they wake up one morning and they decide they want to do their first couch to 5K program or something, and they go out looking for their local fun run group, they're in a city. The local race they're going to find is going to be a road race. They're going to meet up with a local group that runs out of their local running store and runs on the road 2-3 nights a week, and they have their own little race circuit that they do. I think a lot of it's accessibility. You know, I mean, it's hard. When I was living in the city, you know, I loved running on trails, but I would have to get in my car and drive an hour to go find a trail I could run on. You know, now I live out in the burbs and I'm up north close to the Wisconsin border, and I'm lucky that I have some phenomenal trails all around me that I can run on pretty easily every day. But for a lot of people, that's just not the case. And, you know, I think that's probably why you find that most people, because we all know people who obviously have made the jump from the road running scene, that those people come over into the trail ultra scene and they see this community, they see how fun it is being out there in nature and in the wild, and they immediately fall in love with it. And I think a lot of it is just, hey, I never even knew this was here. I never had access to even experience how great this is, you know?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Like my experience is completely backwards of that.
How so?
I just had the trails. I've always had trails.
Yeah.
I've always had accessibility to trails, 10, 15 minutes leaving from the house. I've always had accessibility to the trails. So,
And you are insanely lucky for that.
yeah, you know, growing up as a kid, 15 minutes, you know, either direction.
Yeah, that's
I could
awesome.
be outside doing whatever I wanted. So sometimes I don't think about accessibility when, you know, the majority of the people do live in these big cities. It's just not something I thought about.
Yeah, it's just tough. I mean, I think if a lot of people had the option to get out somewhere like that, or they, you know, somebody takes them out there. I mean, who's going to go wander in beautiful nature for an hour and be like, "That this sucks"? You know, I mean,
There
it's
probably are
awesome.
people. There probably are people.
There are some people. There are some people. Yeah. But those are the people who also probably find something to complain about no matter where they are.
Yeah, that's
True,
very
yeah.
true. Have you run an ultra yet?
I have not. I've done a bunch of runs myself, like unsupported, up to about 60K.
Okay.
My first race here is going to be at the end of April. It's a 50 miler. It's in northern Michigan. It's called the Thumb to Coast Ultra. It's only in its second year. It's a smaller race. It's kind of mixed between trail and dirt road, but one thing I made sure of, there's no pavement in it.
Nice.
I didn't pick anything too crazy just because I'm, you know, obviously newer to the format. It's my first race at the ultra distance. So I wanted to do something a little similar just to simpler just to get, used to what it's like being out there for that amount of time. And so, yeah, I mean, there's bigger things.
We'll see.
My,
We'll see Derek
yeah,
doing his first 100 by the end of the
my,
year.
my, my,
Robbie, I'm
my,
calling it, dude. I'm calling it.
oh, I already know it'll happen. My personal life goal is not even race related. My whole thing is one day I'm building up to what I would like to run all 11 of the U.S. National Scenic Trails end to end.
Oh, okay.
So
That's a big.
which
That'd be a
totals,
big push.
yeah, it's obviously I'd make a push to do a trail, then probably take a few weeks off and do another one. They all 11 of them together total a little over 18,000 miles. So,
Jeez.
That
but
sounds like a good couple of years.
well, when I very first got into running, I ran my first Chicago Marathon in 2007. I ran a couple smaller races leading up to that, but it was 2006 when I first got into it. And that in 2007 was that was the year that like Born to Run came out.
Mm-hmm.
And there was that big movement into barefoot running and all that kind of stuff. But it was also kind of when like Dean Karnazes started really coming up in popularity. And one of the first books I read when I started running was Ultra Marathon Man. And I've always been drawn to those longer distances and pushing myself to that limit. And just, I'm not really interested in racing anybody else. I'm more interested in just seeing how far I can go. So, and there's a great documentary movie about a famous mountain bike race they do every year that covers the entire Continental Divide. And it's like 11 people that do it, and like 2 of them finish every year.
Yeah.
And ever since I saw that movie, I haven't been able to stop thinking about running the Continental Divide.
Wow. That's crazy. Well, good luck to you and your 50 miler and then in your 18,000 mile trip.
Yeah, exactly. So you're getting ready to run Kettle, right?
Yeah, I'll be up your way in June.
Yeah, that's right in my neck of the woods. I do a lot of training runs in the Kettle Marine Forest Preserve and on the Ice Age Trail.
Oh,
so
cool. I'm have to pick your
beautiful area, man. Beautiful area.
You doing anything that weekend?
What weekend is that race?
I actually think it's Father's Day.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably around.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Might have to keep you in mind.
Might have to pop up there and shout at you.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's ask you some quick fire questions.
Yeah.
What's your favorite shoe, road and trail?
So currently, my favorite shoe I'm running in on the road is Mount Coast R1, and on the trail, my new kind of favorite, just in the last few weeks that I've really fallen in love with, is the new Brooks Caldera.
I have not tried that one yet. I'm a big fan. I wore the Calderas on my run today, and I haven't tried was it the 8? Is it the 8?
Yeah, I'm running in the 8s.
Yeah, I haven't tried it yet, but I've heard really good things about it. I'm excited for it. So
I like it. It's got a great cushy feel, and the traction is fantastic.
yeah, I'm a big fan of that one and the Cascadias. I think they do a great job with their trail shoes. So
absolutely.
What's your favorite like brand, your clothing brand? What are you repping?
Clothing brand, I'm not a picky guy, man.
Okay.
I'm a buy it on the sale rack kind of guy. So I buy a lot of my running gear at Sierra. I don't know if you know what that is.
I don't.
It's like the discount REI basically.
Oh, okay. It's like the Poshmark.
Yeah.
What about?
I'm pretty tough. I'm pretty tough on my clothes. I do trade work, manual work for a living now, and my wife always teases me I can't keep paint off of my clothes for like a day, so I don't buy nothing too expensive when it comes to my clothes.
What about pack?
Pack, on most of my daily runs, I'm running with the Osprey Enduro 1.5. And if I'm doing something longer, it's the Salomon 12 liter.
Cool. All right, Robbie, I'll let you pick the deep analytical one, whatever one you want to go with.
We got to go with grapes.
All right, go for it.
So there's a bucket, 1,000 grapes in the bucket.
Okay.
You get $5,000 when you eat one grape. But one of the grapes is poisonous and will kill you. How many grapes are you going to eat?
Oh, I heard this the other day. 0.
Oh, he's going 0.
0.
Yeah.
What's your reasoning
Yep.
behind that?
Well, I not to be anything. I'm by no means. I just told you I buy all my clothes on discount. I'm not wealthy, but I don't need $5,000 so bad to risk dying and not being able to watch my kids get married or something like that. Not worth it to me.
I honestly think you're the first person to ever say 0 because most people are like, "Nah, I'm going to eat at least." Well, somebody said they eat 100.
I know. I'm glad you asked that because I heard you ask that on a prior episode, and I was like, in my head, I was like, why are these people saying any number? The number is 0. It's $5,000. It's not even like it's 50 billion. Like it's a number worth dying over.
I mean, but
Yeah,
if you eat a lot of them, you could potentially have a lot of money. But I mean, that's a risk
I
you're
don't
gonna
know,
take.
man.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well,
I'm
Derek,
sticking with 0.
where can people find you on socials?
Instagram, I'm at Turntail and Trail.
Awesome. Is that you websited or is that where?
No,
is that it?
that's it. That's the only place I'm at. I'm not. Like I said, I'm fairly newer getting back into this, just kind of in the last year or so, and I think like everybody else, just kind of started that to connect with people and share what's going on and stuff. So yeah, that's the end of where I'm at right now. But much like the running distances, that may expand.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, well, thanks for coming on. It was such a great topic and something that like I didn't know anything about, and
Yeah.
you taught me a ton. So
Yeah, me too.
I really appreciate it. So thank you.
That was awesome,
thank you
guys.
for coming on and taking us through that. So if you enjoyed Derek's podcast, please leave us a comment, leave us a review, share this out to all your friends that are going to be running the Chicago Marathon this year, and let them know what the logistics are behind it. And unlike Chicago, we'll see you on the trails.
Absolutely.